Discover the amazing secret to being ruthless. Transform your life in 30 days with Stoic Wisdom. Rachel Turner stood in her late grandfather's attic, surrounded by dust motes dancing in the fading evening light. The weight of the world pressed on her shoulders as she thumbed through an old book, its faded cover emblazoned with the words Stoic philosophy. She felt an unusual fluttering in her chest. Could this be the key to her unrealized desires? But with each page she turned, another wave of self-doubt surfaced. The dichotomy of being a dedicated mother and a passionate nurse clashed violently in her mind. Why did she feel unworthy when Jack basked in titles and praises? Was her life mere submission to family values that squashed ambition? As she juggled late-night shifts at the hospital with after-school pickups, a familiar ache would gnaw at her insides. The sacrifices she made cooking dinner for the kids, arranging playdates were all part of her identity. Yet, nestled among those responsibilities, the competition at work left her feeling like an afterthought. When had her needs become secondary to everyone else's? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With renewed determination, Rachel began reading the book with fervor. Could she find ambition within the confines of her current life? The idea of being unapologetically ambitious took root, sending shivers of fear and excitement up her spine. Yet that excitement was poisoned by a growing tension at home. Jack, once her biggest ally, seemed threatened, his pride bristling as her confidence surged. At the hospital, things took a darker turn. Rachel's insights went unnoticed, her voice drowned out by the clamor of senior staff who prioritized their allegiances and comfort over patience. Each dismissal chipped away at her resilience, turning her eagerness into desperation. She wrestled with the knowledge that the system was rigged against those like her. And when a malpractice accusation blindsided her desperate attempts at advocacy, she felt the ground beneath her shift. In that moment, everything she fought to uphold wobbled. The heaviness of betrayal gnawed at her heart, question after question bombarding her mind. How could she navigate this treacherous terrain while safeguarding her values? Confronting authority was daunting, as she wondered whether she was now fighting an impossible battle. Can she protect her family while climbing the ladder after years of climbing down? Tension began to swirl with each passing day, the walls tightening around her. At the core of it all, Rachel faced a pervasive fear: would fighting for her voice cost her everything she held dear? Or could it ignite a rebellion that had long lain dormant within her? As she contemplated the storm brewing, victory felt as distant as ever. Standing on the precipice of ambition and loyalty, Rachel felt that a reckoning was coming, and there was no turning back. Rachel awoke to the shrill cry of her alarm clock, its relentless beeping cutting through the fog of unresolved thoughts clinging to her mind. She lay still for a moment, acknowledging the familiar apprehension curling in her stomach. Today would be different. Today, she would no longer be a passive observer. She would reclaim her narrative. As she tiptoed through the house, she could hear the quiet hum of her children's breathing, the lives she cherished most resting peacefully. Yet even that comfort felt muffled by her internal chaos. Rachel poured herself a cup of coffee, dark and bitter, savoring the heat seeping into her palms. With each sip, clarity began to crystallize, the wisdom from her grandfather's book lingered in her mind. The Stoics preached resilience and fortitude, qualities she had yet to fully embody. The drive to the hospital was filled with a cacophony of thoughts. Rachel envisioned fiercely advocating for her patients, unearthing the courage to voice her insights without the fear of repercussions. The malpractice accusations loomed, threatening to consume her like a dark tide, but she was determined to fight back. Resilience was not about whether she would bend but about how she could stand firm against the trials ahead. Arriving at the hospital, she noticed familiar faces, each locked in their own battles against bureaucracy and indifference. Was she the only one willing to confront the storm? Shaking off her doubts, Rachel strode into the nurse's station. The buzz of chatter came to an abrupt halt, and for a moment, she felt their eyes boring into her. "Hey, Rach, you alright?" a colleague remarked with forced casualness, glancing away as soon as their gazes met. It struck her, even trivial concerns held power in this compressed world of silence and side glances. The fear of vulnerability was as palpable as the medical charts piled high on the counter. "Just fine," she replied, her voice steady. Unwavering resolve was at the forefront now, challenging her frailties. Rachel approached the head nurse, Claire, whose gossip was notorious but whose power wielded a heavy hammer over others' passions. "Can we discuss the recent shift allocations?" "I believe we can improve patient care if we adjust the assignments," Rachel suggested, her tone firm yet collaborative. Claire raised an eyebrow, her expression a mixture of amusement and disdain. "We keep things running the way they are for a reason, Rachel. Everyone's adjusted just fine." Rachel inhaled sharply, pushing against the surge of frustration rising within her. "But that doesn't consider the well-being of the patients, does it? 3 cases of pneumonia last week. Wouldn't it be beneficial to allocate the stronger staff to those shifts?" The silence draped over them, a thick blanket of tension. Clara's hardened demeanor momentarily faltered, and Rachel seized that moment. This wasn't just about nursing, it was about laying down her right to be heard. "Let us take this to the team," Rachel urged, gaining momentum, fueled by a combination of fear and adrenaline. "We owe it to our patients." The cold grip of fear did not disappear, it hovered, whispering doubts in her ear. Nonetheless, a flicker of something new ignited in Rachel determination, the kind that pushed against the tide, ready to face the critics that would undoubtedly rise. As they convened in the conference room, Rachel's pulse quickened, but so did her resolve. This would be her moment, a chance to break the chains binding her professional identity. The conversation unfolded, and with each word, the fog covering her ambition dissipated. It felt right, the stakes were high, but the quest for accountability sizzled around her like a fresh flame. With the discussions intensifying, Rachel suddenly locked eyes with Jack across the room, his stance rigid, a mixture of pride and disappointment etched across his features. The unspoken tension filtered through the air, challenging her to find balance. Could she stake a claim for her ambitions without losing everything she had built? This was the path she had chosen. And now she must walk it without flinching. Tomorrow would reveal the consequences of today's bravery. The challenge wasn't in the confrontation itself but in the vulnerability that came with stepping into the light. With her heart racing, she recognized she was on the precipice of transformation. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: she would no longer be silent. The time had come to face not only her professional fears but also the very fabric of her fears woven into her relationships. Would Jack support her newfound vigor or resist it? That question hovered heavily in her mind as she prepared for the unpredictable road ahead. The morning sun streamed through the windows of the conference room, illuminating Rachel's tense features as discussions swirled around her. Her heart latched onto every word, as if they were stepping stones guiding her deeper into the conversation. The stakes were undeniably high. She could sense the cautious whispers of dissent lurking beneath the surface. No longer would she suppress her insights, every argument was a canvas for her growing confidence. Clara's dismissal might have felt like a defeat, but it was merely an opening, an opportunity for Rachel to sharpen her stance. As colleagues shared their views, she leaned forward, ready to seize the moment. "We're not merely filling shifts here," she interjected, her tone growing assertive. "Patients are at risk, and we owe it to them to prioritize care over convenience. If we shift resources to the most critical cases, it benefits everyone." Eyes turned towards her, some skeptical, others intrigued. A sinking feeling mingled with adrenaline as she realized the gravity of her words. This wasn't just about nursing protocols, it was a firm stand against the tide of complacency. The reality of vulnerability washed over her, and yet, in its embrace, she discovered an unexpected strength. One colleague, Maria, nodded slowly, choosing to support Rachel's perspective. "What have we got to lose by experimenting with the shift assignments? We've seen those patterns before. People are burning out." Rachel's pulse quickened, the warmth of solidarity igniting her resolve. If Maria could harness her fearlessness, then so could Rachel. Each voice speaking in tandem built a choir, underscoring the shift from fear to empowerment. Could it be that they all yearned for change but didn't know how? Rachel felt a flicker of hope, that small spark of collective awakening echoed within her. "Let us run it as a pilot program," Rachel urged, her excitement palpable. "A week of focused assignments and metrics to measure our results. If it fails, we revert. But if we improve patients' outcomes." The room buzzed with newfound energy, and even Claire appeared to reconsider her rigid position. "I suppose there is no harm in trying," she finally conceded, a hint of wariness in her tone. Rachel nearly deflated, emotions swirling as triumph washed over her. She had leaned into the discomfort and found her voice. It was not merely a personal victory, the discussions piqued her instinctual drive to advocate for her patients. A shudder of exhilaration coursed through her. Yet, amid the pride came an unsettling revelation: this emerging commitment would stretch far beyond just professional boundaries. Jack's face lingered in the back of her mind, his disappointment carved into her heart. The last thing she wanted was to fracture their fragile equilibrium. Rachel brushed her hair back, a habitual motion of anxiety resurfacing as thoughts collided. Turning her gaze to the window, her reflection mingled with the outside world. She was prepared to battle systemic failures. Could she simultaneously soothe the cracks in their domestic life? Poised for confrontation, the echoes of doubt threatened to unravel the threads of her newfound strength. The meeting concluded in a muted, charged anticipation. Rachel walked out with her colleagues surrounding her, yet the weight of her decisions bore down heavily as they exited to the nursing floor. What kind of mother could she be if she couldn't even keep her relationship steadfast? Making her way through the hospital corridors, she fought against the gnawing insecurity that threatened her resolve. The ground beneath her felt unstable, filled with the unpredictable nature of consequences. Rachel steeled herself for whatever lay ahead. She had to be the architect of her life, even if it meant constructing it piece by piece in fractured moments. Her day wore on, filled with patient care, reports, and the endless hum of voices around her. But even as she engaged in her routine tasks, her thoughts spiraled toward Jack. She had stepped into the light of her own truth, and yet his shadow loomed large. Would he ever understand her urgency for transformation? That night at home, as she brushed her children's hair before bed, the inevitable moment of confrontation loomed. What awaited Rachel upon revealing the changes in her professional life? Could she salvage their connection, or would her ambition push him further away? In the stillness, the silence pressed against her, amplifying the chaos of her heart. The moment of truth was drawing nearer. Would Jack rise to the challenge, or would her journey toward authenticity cause them to drift apart? Rachel braced herself, the urgency of her self-discovery whispering through the air. This was only the beginning. Rachel sat at the edge of their bed, the dim light casting shadows that danced around her. The tension within her grew as she recalled the day's events. Her mind replayed the conference room, her colleagues' faces, the surge of confidence that had rippled through her. Yet, as soon as Jack walked in, the resolve melted away like morning fog in the sunlight. "Hey, how was your day?" he asked, shedding his coat and tossing it onto the chair. She noticed the distant smile that couldn't quite reach his eyes. "Busy," she replied, clutching the fabric of the blanket tightly. There were some big changes discussed at work. His brow furrowed, and she could almost hear the ticking clock in the silence that followed, each second amplifying her apprehension. What kind of changes? Rachel took a breath, preparing to unveil the truth, the transformation she yearned for both personally and professionally. "We're proposing a pilot program for shift assignments to focus on critical patient needs." Jack leaned against the dresser, his arms crossing. "That sounds ambitious." The skepticism was palpable, and the aura shifted. She felt her heart race. It wasn't merely about the pilot, it was about asserting her identity in a world that often relegated her to the background. "We're letting burnout impact our care. I want things to change," she insisted, her voice steadier than she felt. Jack's expression tightened. "And what about us? What about the time we need as a family?" That question struck her like a blow. She had tried to balance so much, but the weight of ambition and family was elevating the stakes. "I need you to understand, Jack. This isn't just about me wanting a promotion or recognition, it's about patients who depend on us. What if we can actually make their lives better?" His demeanor softened slightly, but the doubt lingered. It's noble, Rachel, but at what cost to your sanity? At what cost to our family? The precarious balance of her desires and responsibilities hung in the air between them. She had fought to find her voice, yet now it felt as though Jack's words were a tether pulling her back. Would pursuing her professional aspirations sacrifice their family dynamic? She wanted to scream that she was trying to find herself, to bring change, to channel her potential in a way that rippled throughout their lives. Instead, the words caught in her throat, stymied by the fear of disappointment. I don't want to choose between who I am and who I need to be, she finally murmured, fighting back tears. Jack moved closer, his expression caught between concern and frustration. I get that, but can't this wait? We're still reeling from the last upheaval. His words spiraled through Rachel's mind like a taunting refrain. The upheaval of their routines, the adjustments required to accommodate both her career ambitions and family needs. Was she ready to wade into the depths? Her mind raced through the myriad possibilities of her future, pondering sacrifices that could shape each twist and turn. Taking a slow, steady breath, Rachel sifted through her emotions, anchoring herself in the reality of her choice. This is hard for both of us, I know. But I'm ready to forge ahead. If we take this risk together, we could build something stronger both for the patients and our family. But what if we lose each other in the process? Jack probed gently, his eyes searching hers for assurance. Rachel leaned into the uncertainty. Fear loomed large, a heavy they both shared, but an even greater force was her determination to forge ahead. She caught a glimpse of her reflection in the dresser mirror. The woman looking back was resolute. The journey toward authenticity would be painful, but it was one she felt compelled to pursue. As they stood in that charged silence, Rachel realized the energy sparking between them was not just an impasse but a turning point. The road ahead was obscured, filled with potential pitfalls, yet it also gleamed with the possibility of becoming the best version of themselves. The conversation slipped into a lull, and Rachel's thoughts wandered toward what it would take to find common ground, how to navigate the terrain of ambition without leaving behind the relationships she held dear. As her gaze drifted toward the window, a new resolve began to crystallize. She could integrate her aspirations within the framework of her family life, fashioning a new path that honored both realms of her existence. But the question loomed, what would that balance look like, and could it be sustainable? Rachel turned back to Jack, ready to discuss her next steps. What if we tried to support each other as goals? I can stay focused on my work if you consider what you want to. Could this be a team effort? He paused, contemplating her suggestion. The moment clung in the air, tense with uncertainty, yet laden with potential. Was she prepared to advocate not only for her patients but for her marriage as well? The night felt charged with unspoken promises and burgeoning shifts. Amid the swirling emotions, Rachel foresaw that every decision carried weight, a chance to shape both her future and that of her family. With the new dawn beyond the horizon, she braced herself for what lay ahead, knowing the journey into uncharted territory had only just begun. Would they be able to face their ambitions together, or would this be the moment where their aspirations diverged forever? The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow across the room. Rachel blinked against the light, feeling the remnants of last night's conversation swirling in her mind. She had ventured into a territory filled with both hope and trepidation. The possibility of creating a partnership with Jack was exhilarating, but beneath that excitement lay anxiety, the dread of uncharted dynamics both at home and at work. As she got up to prepare for the day, she found herself contemplating her professional aspirations with renewed intensity. The idea of spearheading a pilot program ignited a fire within her, but how could that fire be sustained without igniting conflict within her family? In her car, she replayed the moments leading up to her presentation at work. Her palms had sweated, she had almost stumbled over her words, but once she started sharing her vision, the confidence flowed like a river. The positive feedback had been encouraging, and yet Jack's skepticism echoed ominously in her mind. Could she sustain that energy, not only in the workplace but at home? Arriving at the hospital, Rachel's pulse quickened as she approached the conference room. Colleagues gathered, the hum of conversations blending into a cacophony of ambition and expectation. She took a deep breath and stepped through the door, ready to reassert her commitment. She wasn't just presenting a project, she was staking a claim as a leader within a system that often silenced her. The meeting commenced. Rachel introduced the pilot program with fervor, framing it not just as an initiative but as a necessary evolution in patient care. As she spoke, she caught glances exchanging curiosity and skepticism among her peers. The energy in the room shifted. "So, what's the catch here?" Amy, a pragmatic nurse with a sharp tongue, challenged. "Change is hard. What makes you think this will work?" "I understand the risks," Rachel countered. "But ignoring the issues will only multiply the costs, both emotionally and financially. We can create a system that cares for our staff as much as it does for our patients." As the discussion evolved, and her colleagues opened up, Rachel found herself enveloped in a whirlwind of ideas and criticisms. Yet every challenge honed her resolve further. She was no longer just trying to be seen, she was being heard, respected. Each rebuttal from the team felt like validation, a step deeper into her newfound identity. However, as the meeting wrapped up, she felt the familiar tug of anxiety return. Had she alienated some of her peers with her boldness? Had she crossed professional lines, putting others on the defensive? Returning to her desk that afternoon, Rachel observed the rhythmic rise and fall of her heartbeat. The juxtaposition of excitement and fear illuminated her understanding of progress. If she were to address Jack's fears about their family, she had to navigate these professional waters with care. Now she wondered how she could incorporate her leadership style into her home life. Was it possible to foster teamwork there as well? She pulled out her notebook, her pen poised to capture her thoughts. Ideas blurred into strategies. She would need to balance her ambitions with compassion, create space for their family's goals alongside her own. The nagging worry stayed, though. Was her ambitious pursuit isolating her? What if Jack continued to feel sidelined? That evening, Rachel found herself wrapped in a blanket on the couch, the remnants of dinner scattered on the coffee table. Jack joined her, a tentative look in his eyes. They needed to talk more about what support truly meant in their new arrangement. "Hey, can we go over things again?" Rachel offered. "Let's map out our plans together. I want to hear your thoughts on what's unfolding at work and how we can fit our lives in tandem." Jack nodded slowly. "I think we need to carve out time, Rachel. Both for your goals and my own." Something within Rachel clicked. This was not just about her progress or Jack's hesitations, this was about becoming a unified front. Sharing the mantle of ambition didn't mean negating their individual dreams. Instead, they could parallel their journeys. The hum of the TV faded into the background as they began to brainstorm. Ideas flew back and forth, laughter mingling with serious discussions. The tension of earlier conversations transformed into actionable plans. Rachel felt empowered, the weight of her ambitions lightening as Jack engaged with her dreams. In that moment, Rachel didn't just see her aspirations, she saw a future for both of them. But the uncertainties still lingered, threatening to crack this newfound equilibrium. Would they truly sustain this unity? With their aspirations aligned, what sacrifices would each of them need to make? Just as Rachel was about to ask Jack a crucial question, her phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line caught her breath: updates from the hospital board about a crucial meeting regarding her proposal. She glanced at Jack, realizing their conversation had only just begun. The night stretched ahead filled with possibilities, yet the ominous cloud of impending decisions loomed over them. How would this meeting shift their aspirations once again? Rachel's heartbeat quickened, the shift in tone unmistakable. The foundation they had built seemed ready to be tested, not just for her program but for the very framework of their family itself. Rachel stared at her phone, processing the subject line that felt both thrilling and daunting. The email from the hospital board wasn't just a notification, it was a crossroads. Steeling herself, she opened it, glancing through the updates that signaled impending decisions, recommendations for new leadership roles, potential advancements, and how her pilot program fit into the hospital's future. Each line sent ripples of anxiety coursing through her. "Everything okay?" Jack's voice broke through, bringing her back to the couch where he sat, watchful and patient. She nodded, forcing a smile, but inside, doubts battled against her excitement. Was she truly ready for this? The email hinted at both a potential promotion and more responsibilities. Was this what she wanted, or merely what she thought she should want? As Jack returned to the warmth of their discussion, she realized she needed clarity, not just on her professional goals but also on how they connected with Jack's hopes. "I have a chance to present my program to the board soon," she said cautiously. The room felt charged with unspoken expectations. It could be a big leap. A leap or a stumble? Jack responded, focus sharp. "Can you handle the pressure? With everything else going on, are we sure this is the right time?" His words pierced through the fog of opportunity, grounding Rachel into a realm of reality. The taste of ambition left a complex flavor on her tongue, sweet yet bitter. She had fought so hard for a voice at work, yet here was Jack, her partner, calling her to reflect. Was she, in her drive, risking the foundation of their relationship? "Pressure is part of the game," she confessed, words flowing more freely. "But I have to be more than just a voice. I need to be a leader. Yet I worry about what that means for us." Rachel's personal journey tangled with their familial roles, and she felt the weight of her aspirations pressing against the fabric of their life together. Jack's intuitive questioning illuminated threads she hadn't yet considered. "Let us make sure your leading doesn't mean excluding," he urged gently. "I need you to see that your aspirations shouldn't overshadow what we've built." In that moment, clarity seeped through their conversation. She realized she had been viewing her ambitions as a solitary climb when in fact, she could extend her leadership into their shared lives. She needed to articulate her vision for both her career and their family, rather than compartmentalizing them. "I want us to create a vision for both of us," Rachel proposed, voice firm. "What do we want together? We can redefine our roles, recalibrating as partners and equals." Jack regarded her, brow furrowing in contemplation before breaking into a smile. "I like that," he said slowly. "We're in this together. Our plans should echo and enrich each other." Empowered by this exchange, Rachel felt a sense of renewed purpose. She began to sketch out ideas for the presentation, integrating Jack's perspective from their discussions. This pilot program wasn't just her quest, it was about enhancing team dynamics that could echo through their family life, fostering collaboration over competition. As they worked on their shared vision, the atmosphere shifted. Each suggestion from Jack brought forth her own ideas in a seamless flow. Creativity intertwined with collaboration breathed new life into her ambitions, turning the daunting task of the board meeting into a shared cause rather than a solitary battle. That night, Rachel found herself ready not just for the board meeting, but for a fundamental transformation in how she approached both her work and family life. She felt fortified by Jack's unwavering presence. Their partnership had become a source of strength rather than division. However, as she closed her notebook filled with merged aspirations, the phone buzzed again, this time, a message from a colleague warning of potential pushback from a senior doctor on her proposal. Rachel's resolve faltered. Would their newly constructed alliance withstand external pressures? She looked at Jack, a question brewing in the pit of her stomach. The time had come to face the realities of professional relationships that could threaten their familial harmony. How could they navigate the conflicting expectations while remaining steadfast as partners? Rachel felt excitement and trepidation surge within her. The real challenge was before them, and just as she opened her mouth to share her concerns, a new wave of determination washed over her. Would they be ready to confront this together? Whatever the outcome, she would no longer face it alone. Rachel sat at her desk, the weight of impending decisions pressing heavily upon her. The flickering light of her computer screen flickered against a backdrop of scribbled notes and half-formed ideas. She had envisioned this moment the culmination of her hard work, and yet, doubt crept in, whispering concerns that clawed at her confidence. The warning about pushback from the senior doctor lingered in her mind, a dark cloud that threatened to cast a shadow over her newly forged ambitions. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. Arguably, this was a crucial moment in her professional journey, but was it simply her fight against a formidable opponent? As her mind raced, she considered the potential consequences of presenting her program. Could she advocate for her vision without alienating influential colleagues? The intricacies of workplace dynamics often left her feeling like she was walking a tightrope, requiring both balance and precision. "Rachel?" Jack's voice drifted from the living room, interrupting her thoughts. She appreciated that he remained attuned to her emotional state, but she also harbored fear of burdening him with her uncertainties. Instead of answering immediately, she took a moment to collect herself, recalling their earlier conversation, a reaffirmation that they were allies in this journey. Steeling herself, she walked into the living room. Jack looked up with concern etched across his face. "You've been quiet. What's on your mind?" "I'm trying to strategize for the presentation," Rachel admitted. "But I can't shake the thought of pushback. I know there's a strong chance that Senior Doctor might resist." Jack leaned forward, intrigued. "Have you considered approaching him beforehand? Understanding where he stands might help you shape your presentation, anticipating objections and addressing them proactively." His suggestion sparked a flicker of understanding within her. A preemptive conversation might not only clarify expectations but could also give her the edge she needed. Perhaps this approach could transform a potential adversary into an ally. She could embody the collaborative leadership she valued. "Okay, yes. I should reach out to him before the board meeting," Rachel replied, her voice gaining strength. "If I can align my vision with his concerns, it might smooth the path for my proposal." "That sounds like a smart strategy," Jack affirmed, smiling. "It's about building bridges, not walls. You can foster understanding rather than perception of rivalry." Rachel felt a new bond of clarity forming in her mind. It was time to confront the nuances of her role. This was about more than a program, it was about establishing herself as a thoughtful, inclusive leader who could embrace the complexities of her workplace relationships. The line between competing and collaborating had blurred, and now, she had the opportunity to redefine that narrative. The next day, Rachel took a deep breath before dialing the senior doctor's number. She had reviewed countless scenarios in her mind, but the moment the call connected, her heart raced. "Dr. Mendoza, this is Rachel Swift. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." He greeted her with a tone that alternated between curiosity and wariness. "No, not at all. What can I do for you?" As Rachel explained her project, she navigated the conversation with intention. She listened, processing his feedback, acknowledging his concerns while injecting her passion for the program. Each moment spent discussing their perspectives felt like a deliberate step toward a shared goal rather than an adversarial encounter. By the end of the call, she realized she was no longer getting lost in doubt, she had unexpectedly connected over shared aspirations for better patient care. The senior doctor's initial resistance began to dissipate. He seemed open, even supportive. Rachel hung up, exhilarated by the turn in dialogue. Back at home, she shared the outcome with Jack, whose smile beamed with pride. "You tackled that beautifully," he declared. "You didn't shy away from the confrontation, you faced it." Rachel's self-belief swelled. They had taken a significant stride together, solidifying their partnership in both personal and professional realms. However, as she prepared for the board meeting, lingering uncertainties hovered. The ultimate test of her newfound confidence awaited her in the boardroom. How far would her collaboration lead? Would she maintain this momentum or falter when faced with even greater resistance? Rachel felt determination wells within her but also apprehension. The time for her to shine was coming, and she couldn't ignore the weight of it all. Glancing at the boardroom agenda, the fear morphed into something sharper: resolve. She was no longer simply chasing a dream. She was in active pursuit of transformation, not just for herself, but for the evolving landscape of her professional life. What she didn't know then was how that transformation would ultimately be put to the test, not just against her colleagues, but against entrenched expectations she had yet to challenge. When the time came, would she harness this momentum, or would she hesitate? The edge of uncertainty beckoned, nudging her toward the brink of a critical moment. The day of the board meeting arrived with a palpable sense of anticipation hanging in the air. Rachel adjusted her blazer in front of the bathroom mirror, a ritual she found herself embracing more frequently as she navigated the complexities of her role. The reflection staring back at her suggested a woman ready to seize her moment, but beneath that composed exterior, her mind raced with questions. Would her vision resonate with the board? What if Dr. Mendoza remained lukewarm in his support? Calculating strategies and counterarguments danced in her thoughts as she rode the elevator to the boardroom. Each ding echoed her heartbeat, a relentless reminder of her ambitions and the stakes at play. As she entered the room filled with her colleagues and superiors, the atmosphere shifted. Chairs scraped, papers rustled, and she recognized the weight of their collective gaze. This was not just a presentation, it was a critical moment that would define her emerging identity within the organization. "Good morning, everyone," Rachel began, her voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of urgency. She launched into her presentation, laying out the framework of her proposed program with clarity and conviction. As she spoke, her earlier conversation with Dr. Mendoza replayed in her mind, a guiding star amidst the storm of doubt. Her slides clicked seamlessly, visuals complementing her narrative. Rachel scanned the room, gauging reactions, finding purpose in her words as she deftly tackled potential questions. Just as she anticipated, Dr. Mendoza interjected. "While your approach is indeed innovative, I have reservations about resource allocation. There will be pushback. Funding is tight, and we need to prioritize our existing commitments," he stated, crossing his arms as if preparing for battle. Rachel took a breath, heart pounding. This was the moment she had prepared for. The dialogue she fostered during their earlier call allowed her to frame a response that acknowledged his concerns while reinforcing her position. "I understand the need for cautious budgeting, Dr. Mendoza, but I believe investing in this program will yield significant long-term benefits. Perhaps we can explore a phased implementation that aligns with current priorities. I'm confident the initial measurable outcomes will advocate for further investment." The board seated around the table exchanged glances, and an undercurrent of interest surfaced. Rachel pressed forward, presenting data that illuminated her points. As she navigated objections, she remained aware of her own emotional landscape. The doubts that threatened to surface were drowned by a rising tide of determination. Furthermore, involving the team in this initiative can enhance engagement and foster ownership over the project, she added, her confidence gradually eclipsing the initial anxiety. Yet, the meeting was not without its challenges. Questions poured in, some cutting deeper than others. Each inquiry demanded not just an analytical response but a level of vulnerability. They exposed the essence of her proposal, revealing both strengths and weaknesses. Rachel felt the pressure build, but she bore it with newfound grace, weaving her own narrative into the fabric of their skepticism. Halfway through the meeting, she noticed an unexpected ally emerge. Another board member, typically reticent, spoke up in favor of her program, citing similar experiences that lent credibility to Rachel's vision. Gratitude surged within her, mingling with a sense of disbelief. The tide was turning. As the meeting wound to a close, Rachel found herself in a position she had only dreamed of. The board was less a battleground now and more a space of collective exploration. The atmosphere had shifted, resistance softened into curiosity, yielding a collaborative spirit. "Let us consider a pilot project for the next quarter," the chair finally agreed, his tone open and inviting. Rachel's heart soared at the prospects unfolding before her. Yet, as she exited the boardroom, the euphoria of success was muddied by a nagging thought. What if? In her pursuit of collaboration and innovation, she neglected the very foundation of why she started this journey? She had managed to rally support, but would the compromises made dilute her original vision? The exhilaration that had fueled her transformed into a question of loyalty to the ideals she cherished versus the pragmatic adjustments required to navigate the waters of a complex organization. Rachel stepped out, acutely aware that this was just the beginning. How would she balance her ambitions with the realities of institutional compromise? A new challenge awaited, one that could test her personal integrity as much as her professional aspirations. The next phase of her journey was not yet clear, but one thing was certain: she needed to confront whether the emerging leadership role she envisioned for herself would truly manifest, or if she would succumb to the pressures of conformity. The moment for introspection loomed large. The following days were an emotional whirlwind for Rachel. The board meeting had yielded the desired outcome, but the taste of victory had been tempered with apprehension. As she settled back into her routine, the gravity of her choices began to weigh heavily on her. The pilot project was a stepping stone, but it felt precarious, built on the shifting sands of compromise. The office buzzed with the energy of new initiatives, and Rachel felt her excitement align with the chaos. Yet, each time she glanced at the reports strewn across her desk, a prickling sense of unease tugged at her. Would the compromises she had made ultimately lead to a diluted project that strayed from her initial vision? What if the very essence of her proposal, its transformative nature, became obscured by the practicalities of execution? Inherent to her role was the pressure to appease stakeholders, yet Rachel was acutely aware of the moral dichotomy that surfaced. The idea of being ruthless loomed large, a concept she had encountered in her readings. It suggested unyielding focus, unflinching determination, but at what cost? Would ruthlessness mean sacrificing the ethos that had propelled her into this leadership role? Rachel sought counsel from her mentor, Linda, who had traversed similar paths. Over coffee, the familiar aroma stirred confidence within her. "You can't please everyone, Rachel," Linda advised, her voice a blend of warmth and pragmatism. "Focus on your core beliefs. Ruthlessness in leadership isn't about trampling over others, it's about prioritizing what truly matters." Rachel nodded, her mind racing with interpretations. Linda's words ignited a new line of questioning within her. Could she embody a form of leadership that was both assertive and principled? As she mulled over this, a lingering doubt surfaced. If she anchored herself in her original ideals, might she alienate potential allies in her quest for innovation? The following week brought another pivotal opportunity: the kickoff meeting for the pilot project. Rachel prepared meticulously, aligning her vision with the resources available. The team assembled, eager and optimistic, but she sensed the underlying tension as they awaited her direction. This was her moment to either steer the ship or let it drift. "Thank you all for joining," Rachel began, her voice steady. As she unveiled the project goals, she underscored the importance of team engagement, emphasizing that their collective input would be vital to success. Heads nodded in agreement, they were ready to take ownership. She could feel the excitement build. But as the meeting progressed, Rachel confronted a wave of objections. Some team members expressed hesitance about the feasibility of the suggested changes, worried that their workloads would increase without clear benefits. Their skepticism echoed Dr. Mendoza's earlier caution, only now, it resonated with personal faces she knew well. "Rachel, how can we be sure this pilot won't just add to our existing pressures without any real payoff?" one team member asked, her brow creased with concern. In that moment, Rachel felt the familiar swell of anxiety clawing at her, but this time, it evolved into determination. "I appreciate your honesty," she responded, tapping into the raw authenticity she sought. "What I propose is a phased approach, where we'll regularly evaluate and adjust based on measurable results. This isn't just about hitting targets, it's about laying the groundwork for future transformative work that we can all feel proud of." As she spoke, a flicker of something shifted in the room. A palpable sense of connection appeared to bond the group, igniting a dialogue that turned into brainstorming, into solutions. Rachel's heart raced not out of fear, but with burgeoning resolve. Maybe, just maybe, she could refine her vision without losing its essence. As the meeting concluded, Rachel felt invigorated, her earlier doubts fading into the background. However, the familiarity of that nagging question remained: how would she grapple with the expectations of her newfound role while ensuring her vision stayed intact? To commit to her ideals or to negotiate space within her responsibilities was a tightrope act she would need to navigate carefully. The moment for a crucial decision was approaching, one that could set the trajectory of her career and her journey as a leader. Would she follow the crowd or carve her own path? The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across her thoughts. The next challenge was looming, and it beckoned her to rise to the occasion. Would Rachel find the courage to embrace her inner ruthlessness while adhering to the values she fiercely believed in? The crossroads she faced was fraught with uncertainty, but one thing was irrefutable: the choice she made would reverberate far beyond her immediate responsibilities. Rachel stood in front of the large conference room window, sunlight pouring in, bringing warmth to her resolve. It had been several weeks since the board's green light on the pilot program. The momentum felt tangible, her team was engaged, testing new grounds in patient care, and the enthusiasm simmered just beneath the surface. Yet, lurking in her mind was the pervasive question of whether she could maintain her authenticity while navigating the pressures of leadership. The balance between ambition and integrity weighed heavily on her shoulders, and every decision she faced chipped away at her confidence, forcing her to reconsider her values. The pilot had yielded promising early results, but as growth was met with praise, complications began to surface, contrasting the idealistic outcomes Rachel had envisioned. Amid this whirlwind, one evening, she received a call from Dr. Mendoza. Their discussion had been cordial, but his voice was tinged with apprehension. "Rachel, I appreciate your efforts, but we need to align our goals with budget constraints. The numbers aren't looking favorable for the continuation of your pilot once this quarter ends." The words landed like lead weights. For a moment, Rachel was speechless. How could she ensure the survival of this program, her passionate pursuit anchored in patient advocacy, if it couldn't withstand scrutiny? That night, she confronted Jack over dinner. "I might lose the pilot program, and with it, my credibility as a leader. It feels like a direct hit against everything I've worked for," she confessed, frustration bubbling to the surface. Jack looked up from his plate, setting down his fork. "But what about the impact you've already made?" Wondering whether you can be both ambitious and true to yourself speaks volumes about your leadership approach. Maybe this is a time to rethink your strategy, not your values. His perspective sparked a flame of inspiration. "You're right," Rachel replied, her voice steadying. "It's not just about fighting to keep this project alive, it's about demonstrating its value in a way that aligns with the hospital's objectives." With renewed determination, Rachel devised a strategic proposal that would not only showcase the program's successes but also align them with the broader goals of the hospital. She assembled data, patient feedback, and qualitative outcomes into a compelling narrative, emphasizing how the pilot could serve the hospital's financial interests by improving patient care outcomes and reducing readmission rates. When the time came to present her revised project, Rachel strode into the boardroom with a solid confidence that eclipsed her previous apprehension. Every word she spoke was anchored in shared goals and appeal to reason and empathy. Knowing that even skeptical voices would be listening, she reinforced the potential savings alongside the profound impact on patient care. To her surprise, halfway through her presentation, Dr. Mendoza interjected not with criticism, but with a thoughtful inquiry. "How do you propose we manage this within our current constraints and resources?" What began as a potential setback turned into a collaborative dialogue, as Rachel highlighted not just figures but emotionally driven stories of patients whose lives were improved thanks to the pilot's innovations. The board members began to engage more openly, expressing their own ideas for sustainable applications. This fortified Rachel's belief. She was not merely advocating for her vision but was weaving a conversation that recognized their collective mission. In the weeks following the presentation, adjustments were made, and the pilot program secured funding for the long term. Amid this professional triumph, Rachel found peace in knowing she had upheld her principles while solidifying her place within the hospital's hierarchy. More importantly, she and Jack continually revisited their shared goals. They dedicated time each week to discuss their aspirations and challenges, fostering an environment where championing each other's ambitions became their norm. This partnership not only enriched their relationship but also instilled confidence in Rachel's ability to navigate the complexities of ambition alongside familial responsibilities. Standing by the same conference room window weeks later, she marveled at her own transformation. The woman who once felt lost amid her roles had now harnessed her strengths, achieved recognition as a leader, and solidified her identity without sacrificing her values. Each decision they made together redefined their familial framework, illustrating that ambition didn't have to stand in opposition to cooperation. Proud of what she had built, Rachel took a deep breath, feeling gratitude wash over her. She was no longer a passive participant in her own life. She had conquered her fears, demonstrated resilience, and ultimately transformed into a version of herself that navigated ambition with integrity. As the sun set on that pivotal chapter, she resolved to continuously guard the integrity of her aspirations and foster growth, both for her patients and her family, knowing she could embrace life's complexities and flourish within them. Now, if you've been inspired by Rachel's journey and you want more stories about personal transformation and triumph, you need to subscribe now to the channel for the latest exclusive emotional narratives. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread these inspiring stories. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who you know need to see this conclusion. Comment below your thoughts and theories about Rachel's achievements. Your engagement matters.